Okay, that seems to have worked. I'm going to wait for people to get in. I'm just waiting for people to disconnect from here and or from the old stream and come into the new one. Okay, good. We've got 3 people in here. Enable live chat. There we go. That's 2, 5. Good. I'm going to put another message here. All right. Okay. All right, I think we're all here. Good. So if anybody misses this, we'll have to send out a follow-up and say this is the link to the new stream. That way they can watch it in retrospect. So I was reading a quote, and I hope that this doesn't break my internet again. My laptop's been acting kind of funny lately. Anyway, so I was reading. He said that, "O angel of God, what dost thou say? They are dead who sought the life of the child. Ah, would that it were true. Are not those wicked Christians who outraged their Savior in the true Bethlehem, the house of bread, that is to say, at the very foot of the sacred altar, are they not so many Herods? They present themselves at the table of the Lord in the attitude of adoration. They strike their breasts as if in sorrow for their sins. They fold their hands as if in deep devotion. And they open those lips defiled by sin. They receive the innocent Lamb of God and make him a prisoner in a sinful and polluted heart. Mortal sin is so opposed to God that, if he could die, sin would destroy him. To receive our Lord into a heart that is defiled by mortal sin is to bring him into the power of his greatest enemy. It is to treat him with even greater cruelty than Herod. Herod was an unbelieving Jew, but those who receive him unworthily are Christians and Catholics. They know whom they maltreat. Herod did not know him. Our Lord does not work a miracle to deliver himself out of the hands as he did to free himself from the hands of Herod. He does not send an angel to inform the priest who, among the throng that presses to the altar, are in a state of mortal sin. And even if he were to do so, the priest is not at liberty to make use of this knowledge, at least not unless the criminal should be a notorious sinner. So tender is Jesus of the reputation of those very men who are heaping outrages upon him." Rather a striking statement coming from this very, very holy and venerable priest. And I think it's something that we need to keep in mind when we look at people like Andrew Cuomo and Nancy Pelosi and all those other pro-abortion politicians who claim the name Catholic, who are working so hard for the destruction of children. I don't know if you saw my newsletter yet. I sent it out early today. Went out at 11 o'clock this morning, which is early for us. But in the newsletter, I focused on what the situation was when the Romans were battling Carthage. And I talked about how Carthage was the wealthiest, the most luxurious, the most pleasure-seeking center of commerce in the entire known world at the time. And Rome, when it went to war with Carthage, 3 times over the course of about 100 years, it became very obvious that the two cultures were so incompatible that the only solution was to destroy Carthage. And I talked about how Cato the Elder, used to end all of his speeches during the Third Punic War with Carthago delenda est, which is Carthage must be destroyed. And he would make that statement even if he wasn't talking about Carthage, even if it was he was giving a speech about fiscal matters. He would end his speech with Carthago delenda est. And then I talked about how the time for mere conversation, mere debate. And I don't mean to say mere witness, because witnessing to women who are facing abortion or trying to obtain one is incredibly important work. But we are at a point where it really is time for us to go to war. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But I just kind of want to give you an idea as to what we're up against. In the last, let me see, since Cuomo, so it's been about 2 weeks now. In the last 2 weeks, since Governor Cuomo decided that he was going to push for the most radical pro-abortion legislation in the entire country, Rhode Island, Virginia, Vermont, New Mexico, and a couple of other states started to introduce very similar bills that would make abortion on demand at any point, any stage in the pregnancy legal for any reason. In many cases, they're seeking to do away with all restrictions on abortion, even a waiting period or a parental notification. They're trying to strip away all regulations and all restrictions on abortion. And most disgustingly, and I'm going to give you some breaking news here in just a moment. Most disgustingly, Ralph Northam, who is the Virginia state governor, my governor, unfortunately, went on record earlier this week talking about infanticide, saying that, if a baby was born alive, then the doctors would do whatever they can to make the baby comfortable, but then, how to handle the baby afterward would be a decision to be made between the mother and her physician, or the woman and her physician, actually, he said, not mother. That's absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. It's vile. He defended his statements a couple of days later in a big press conference that he and a bunch of his other pro-abortion cohorts held. And he got up there and he started pointing a finger and saying, "Oh, this is just a Republican smear campaign. They're desperate." We are not desperate. Okay. The one who is desperate is the one who is acting rashly. And I think that at this stage in the game, at this level of the fight, the Democrats and the pro-abortion politicians in Congress and throughout the country just overstepped their boundaries. They just pushed that much too far, and they showed their hand. This is not about, and we knew this, but they're showing the rest of the world, this is not about women's rights. This is not about, a woman's body and deciding what to do with her body. These are people that we're talking about killing babies while the mother is in active labor. Kathy Tran, a delegate in the state of Virginia, here in Virginia, she was questioned after she introduced this horrible, horrible legislation here in Virginia, which thankfully died in committee. She was questioned by members of the committee, and they asked her point blank, if the woman, at what point does this legislation allow for an abortion? And she wouldn't really answer the question. They said, okay, well, suppose the woman's in active labor, and she kept trying to dodge. And the questioner finally said, the woman is in active labor. She's starting to dilate. Does your legislation protect an abortion even in that case? And she finally said, yes. Which means this is not about health, because if she's dilated and she's delivering, then just a few pushes and that baby's out, and whatever health crisis the woman was facing, you don't have to kill the baby. And so that's what this is all about. They are all about pushing this legislation that is to kill children. That's why they're pushing so hard. And there's a lot of speculation that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is either dead or is on death's door, because no one has seen or heard anything from her since she had surgery last month or the month before. So the question is, are the Democrats really desperate because they realize that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is not long for this world, or perhaps has even departed it already, and are trying desperately to find ways to enshrine abortion in state legislatures because they suspect that Roe versus Wade may be actually and truly overturned. So here's where we step in. This is where we really come into play, because this is our fight now. This is our fight. This is where we have to actually pick up the arms that our Lady gave us. She gave us the rosary. That she called it the weapon. This is our weapon, and it is a weapon of true destruction of sin, of the horrors of child sacrifice. Her heel conquered the sacrificial altars of Mexico through her miraculous image of Guadalupe, and she will conquer again. She's going to conquer again. And again, I'm going to get into that. But I want to give you a little bit of breaking news. I don't know if you have seen this yet or not, but after all of the hullabaloo and this ties in with Ralph Northam. Okay, I was just talking about Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia, who was pushing for infanticide. Let's remember that. Pushing for infanticide. Last week, the big hullabaloo, the big to-do was all about how those boys from Covington High School, Covington Catholic High School, were wearing Make America Great Again hats. And those hats were just as bad as KKK hoods. Okay, that's what they were saying. That's what they were accusing these boys of. That they were hate mongers, that they were racist, that they were wearing KKK hoods in the form of these Make America Great Again hats. These boys were then later smeared as wearing blackface because they painted themselves in black for these basketball games. And they called them blackout games. When they went to another kind of game where they were wearing a different color, they called them blue out games. And they had these color themed games. That it was a sporting thing, not blackface. But these, trigger happy leftists were calling them blackface, saying that they were mocking blacks, wearing blackface, and all that kind of stuff. Well, remember, these boys are pro-life. They were wearing MAGA hats, Make America Great Again hats, that were compared with KKK hoods, and they were accused of wearing blackface. Take a look at this. You can open this up in another browser, and what you're going to see is a picture of Ralph Northam, the Virginia state governor who was pushing infanticide. This is from his 1984 medical school yearbook, and you can see him and a friend of his. We don't know which is which. Either he's wearing the blackface and his friend is wearing a KKK hood, or it's the other way around. Now, what I'm wondering is, when are we going to see the fireworks from the left calling for his resignation and calling for his drumming out of office? When are they going to start finding, where he and his family live and everything else, and start doxing them and calling for them to be punched in the face and thrown in a wood chipper, just like they did with those boys from Covington Catholic High School? Now, I'm not saying that we should be doing that. We should not. But the left, in their hypocrisy, I predict, is not going to throw a giant hissy fit over those pictures. And they're going to find some way of excusing them, saying, oh, this was just it was a joke party. It was a joke. They were at a party and they were making, it was just a joke. That's what they'll say. They'll find some way of explaining it away. But if you click on the link that I just posted, you'll be able to go and see in black and white Ralph Northam and his friend, one in blackface, one wearing a KKK hood. And remember, Northam was pushing infanticide. This man's political career should be dead, and it should be dead now. He should no longer be governor. He should be forced to resign, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Not yet. This is where I want to bring in where we come in. Okay, I've been kind of bringing it up, prepping for it. I want to share with you this book, The 10 Wonders of the Rosary. It's by Father Donald Calloway. I got sent this book by him. He sent it to me as a preview copy. And I've been reading it every night to my family as we pray the rosary. Well, not every night, but Um, when we have periods of time that we can actually have some family time to read together. Over the last few weeks, I've been reading a chapter at a time and reading story after story from this book. It's a wonderful little book. It's not difficult. It's not heavy, but it does inspire, and it's inspiring in a way that you read it and you go, our faith really is very simple. Our faith is not for the learned. I mean, the learned are certainly they help to enrich in what we understand about our faith, but we don't have to be high level intellectuals to be Catholic. In fact, it's better for us if we're not. Having a simple faith is a great blessing. But this book, and I highly recommend it, 10 Wonders of the Rosary. It helps us to understand that the Rosary has real power, real and true power. It has the power to bind evil. It has the power to halt sin. It has the power to stop the horrors in the world. And that's what we should be doing with the Rosary. That's what we should be using it for. It's a weapon. The Rosary truly and really and truly is a weapon. And I want to read to you just a couple of sections because it really draws this out. And I can't emphasize this enough. I don't know if you know this story. Some of you may, and some of you may not. But this emphasizes what I'm trying to say. In April of 2014, Boko Haram kidnapped more than 200 young girls from a school in Nigeria, Africa. Boko Haram is the notorious radical Muslim group that violently slaughters non-Muslims by such means as decapitation or burning people alive. In December of 2014, Jesus appeared to a Catholic bishop in Nigeria. I've been to Nigeria and I've met several Catholic bishops there. They are some of the holiest bishops I've ever met. Jesus appeared to a Catholic bishop in Nigeria and instructed him that the Rosary was the weapon that would overcome Boko Haram. Bishop Oliver Dashe Boeme of the Diocese of Maiduguri in Nigeria claims that one evening, while he was praying the Rosary, Jesus appeared to him holding a sword. During the vision, Jesus extended the sword to the bishop. When the bishop went to take the sword from Jesus, it miraculously transformed into a rosary. Once the bishop had the rosary in hand, the rosary sword in his hands, Jesus looked at him and said 3 times, "Boko Haram is gone. Boko Haram is gone. Boko Haram is gone." Now remember, anytime God says something 3 times, it's an oath. He's swearing an oath. After the bishop of Maiduguri, I'm butchering it, had his vision, he began to promote the Rosary in his diocese in Nigeria. In many of his interviews, he repeats this vision and informs his listeners of the interpretation of the vision in the following words. "As soon as I received the sword, it turned into a rosary. I didn't need any prophet to give me the explanation. It was clear that with the rosary, we would be able to expel Boko Haram." On October the 13th, 2016, dozens of kidnapped girls were suddenly released by Boko Haram from captivity. In May of 2017, 83 girls were released. Then, on July 3rd, 2017, 700 members of Boko Haram surrendered their weapons and turned themselves in to Nigerian authorities. Take note of the date, October 13th, 2016. That is exactly 99 years from the miracle of Fatima. Our Lady is telling us something. She's telling us something. She's telling us that it's time for us to take up our weapon and start applying it the way that it was intended to. We are supposed to be taking our weapon to the streets and bringing it into the battlefield. And I'm going to be just as a precursor here. There will be no inner circle next week because I'm going to be out of state. I am going to be in a series of meetings next week. I'll tell you all about it when I get back. It's a little bit of a secret, so you're kind of on the inside here. But I'm going to be meeting with several other Catholic leaders who are very, very disconcerted with what's going on. The link went to spam. Oh, that's weird. Wonder why. Okay, I'm sorry you're late. If John and Gloria, if you after the video, you can watch the beginning part. It'll be archived. So if you follow this particular link right here, you'll be able to watch the archived version. So I'm sorry that everything, for whatever reason, the link messed up and my computer shut down and I had to reboot. But there we are. But anyway, I'm going to this meeting next week. There won't be an inner circle meeting. But while I'm there, the bottom line is we're going to be strategizing on how to push back and how to fight against what's going on with our corrupt clergy, what's going on with the corrupt episcopacy, and how to fight against these pro-abortion politicians that call themselves Catholic that are strongly pushing, I mean, overstretching in pushing for this this horrible thing. And in response, and I've been thinking about this for a while, but I think the time is now. I think this is our time for doing this. I'm going to try to organize statewide rosary rallies in those areas where these pro-abortion measures are being pushed. I'm going to organize one in Virginia because they tabled the vote. They did not vote it down. So it could be revisited at any point. So what we're going to do, we're going to hold these rosary rallies. We're going to surround legislative buildings, and we are going to be praying our rosaries, and we are going to be carrying banners of Our Lady. And we're taking Our Lady and we're taking our swords to the battleground. We can't just talk about this anymore. We're beyond the point of talking, and nothing is going to change if we don't bring Our Lady to the fight. So we've got to bring Our Lady to the fight. We're going to start having these rosary rallies outside of legislative buildings. I will be trying to work with TFP. Yes. I was actually talking to Noel Preston, or Preston Noel, who's the president of TFP, the other day, and hopefully he and I can coordinate. So yeah, we'll be definitely trying to coordinate and organize so that we get as broad support as we possibly can, drive as many people to these rosary rallies as we can. I think the time is now. It's either now or never. So if we're going to actually see a victory, we're going to see the triumph of Our Lady's Immaculate Heart. It's good for us to pray the rosary with our family at home, but we've got to go into the battlefield. We've got to go into the battlefield. We have to take our swords to the fight. So that's what we plan on doing. And that's what I'm going to push for. Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know about the Rosary Rally there in Covington. So I'll join you in prayer from here. I'm not anywhere near Covington, but I'll be joining you in spirit. As I said, I'm traveling this week, so I won't be in any position to go anywhere until I get back. But once I do, I think we need to go state to state. I think we need to go state to state, and I think we need to just start having rally after rally after rally, and continue. And Clayton, I'm glad to see you. I'm sorry that you're late. You probably got sent to the wrong link because the other link shut down. As I told some others earlier, John and Gloria, what you can do at the end of this session, after I close it, you can rewatch it because it'll be archived, so you can actually watch it back from the beginning. I'm very sorry that it happened this way. Technology sometimes gets in our way. So that's what we'll be doing. That's our approach. Now I want to give you an update on. Let me see here. I want to give you an update on the petition that I've been working on. I told you a couple of weeks ago, several weeks ago actually, that we were working on a petition that would ask bishops specifically to excommunicate pro-abortion politicians, specifically Nancy Pelosi. As I said, I think either last week or the week before, this became rather difficult when we realized that the intricacies of canon law made this far more complicated and far more requiring far more research than we had already applied. So we kind of went back to the drawing board. After consultation with some experts in canon law and looking over the various avenues that can be taken with regard to excommunication, we're pretty sure that we've found the right source. We're pretty sure we found a perfect path to go. So we've drafted the petition. I've got experts in canon law looking it over now, making sure that we've crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's so that we can make sure. Oh boy. Can anybody else see? Am I lost with anybody else? Can everybody else see me? My laptop's telling me that I'm still connected. Okay. All right. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Boy, technology is having a heyday today, isn't it? That's funny. I was on the Terry and Jesse show the other day. We were talking about Freemasonry, and while we were while we were in the middle of the conversation, all of a sudden my phone just went out, and I told Terry that I don't know what happened. I was in the middle of talking, and the next thing I know, the call dropped, and I had no cell connection or anything. I had to reboot my phone. And he said, it happens every time we get into a really good conversation with a really important guest. So I don't know that makes me important, but that's what he told me. To share with us a letter that you personally. Okay. So the letter from that was actually an old. That was an old issue. Yeah. This is the letter that I got from James Martin. I got this back in December, I think. I think that's when I talked about this. So if that made it into the email, this last email, I apologize. That wasn't one of the things that I had on the docket. But anyway, I'm very sorry. All the technological interruptions has really kind of thrown me off. So I lost where I was. Oh, I was giving you an update on the petition. Anyway, we found the way to go. We have everything all lined up. I've got support from Population Research Institute. Human Life International is interested in backing it. LifeSite News, Church Militant, Regina Magazine, the Mike Church Program, the Terry and Jesse Show. So that's 7 organizations now that are going to be pushing this petition once it's ready. And so once everything's squared away, and I'm hoping that we will have a final version tomorrow morning. And once that's done, I'll be uploading it and working on making sure that everything is all lined up over the weekend so that on Monday morning, we'll issue a press release. We're going to send out an action alert through the email list. So make sure that you pay attention to your emails throughout the day on Monday. And what I'm going to ask you, once you get the petition, sign it, and then pass it on to as many family and friends that you can think of that are interested in promoting this kind of thing, because this is how we actually get the kind of fight done, so that we can ask our bishops to do the right thing. The strategy is this, and I think I talked about it a little bit the last time. I'll just reiterate. The strategy is this. In 1931, the Conference of Bishops in Germany excommunicated the leaders of the Nazi Party. In 1996, Bishop Bruskowitz issued a decree in his diocese that all members of Call to Action, all members of Planned Parenthood and Catholics for Free Choice were excommunicated. The Hemlock Society was another one. So what we've done is we've put together kind of an outline showing that good bishops in these dioceses should be issuing decrees that state, it gives warning. It says, you politicians, you Catholics who are in public office, whether judicial or legislative or executive, if you sign into law, promote a law, introduce a law or bill, side with in your judicial authority any measure that promotes abortion, you will be excommunicated. And that's what we're suggesting. That way, it covers the need to inform the individual that they will be excommunicated if they do such a thing. There will be a law in place in these dioceses because bishops have the authority to do this. There will be a law in place so that once the law is broken, the bishop can enact certain penalties, starting with the denial of communion, going up the chain, including excommunication for those who remain obstinate. Okay, so there will be a procedure, a legislative or a legal canonical procedure for bishops to follow in their own dioceses, because they seem to be rather confused about what they can do with canon law on the whole. They have the power and the authority to issue such a decree within their own diocese, and they should be actually doing this. That they haven't up till this point is kind of surprising, but I think a lot of them really don't know exactly how far their authority goes. In the meantime, we can certainly expect that the likes of Cardinal Cupich or Cardinal Tobin will fully ignore such a decree or such a request. So we'll not get anywhere with them while they persecute. Could this hinder the approval of Supreme Court justice nominees? I don't think so. I don't. Well. That's a good point. I'll talk to my canon lawyer. I'll talk to my canon lawyer and ask him. Maybe we should just remove the section on the judicial statement for now. I mean, we could just talk about politics or Catholics in public life, and leave it at that without actually being specific with whether you're in the different branches of government. That's a very good point. That's a very fair point. I hadn't considered that. But that's a very fair point. Yeah, I think we can amend it so that it wouldn't draw attention to potential nominees. That's a very fair point. So in the meantime, like I said, I've lost my train of thought because I had everything set up and then the computer kind of went on the fritz. So why don't I just turn the floor over to you guys? If you have any questions or if there's anything that you want to talk about, why don't you go ahead and bring it up, because I kind of lost my itinerary. So I'm kind of going by memory here. If you have any questions or if you have anything that you want to talk about, if there's a topic or something that's a question that you have burning in the back of your head, go ahead and put it in the chat room over here, and I'll be ready to go into that. So I'll just wait just a second to see if you've got anything. In the meantime, and I'm afraid to open anything else on my computer, otherwise it might crap out again. Let's see. I don't see any other. Let's see. What about Martin? Oh, you mean the thing about the letter? Like I said, that was something I brought up about a month or so ago, but I'll reiterate. I got this promotional mailer from Father James Martin. What he had in there was this prayer card. It's this prayer card, America Magazine prayer card, and he was, it was a prayer for it. This comes out of his book, Building a Bridge, a prayer for when you feel rejected. A lot of you have probably already seen this, and I did talk about it before. But in this prayer, he goes in, he says, loving God, you made me who I am. Right there, he's suggesting that a homosexual was made as a homosexual. You made me who I am. I praise you and I love you, for I am wonderfully made in your own image. Now, if God made him as he is, you made me who I am. I am gay. Therefore, you made me gay. That's the logic of step one. Step two, for I am wonderfully made in your own image. Well, wonderfully made in his own image, if God made him gay, then what Father Martin is saying here in this prayer is that God's gay. That's what he's saying. If you made me who I am a homosexual, you made me who I am wonderfully made in your own image. So therefore, if you made me and I'm gay and I'm in your image, that means you're gay too. So what Father Martin is implying by the logic of this prayer is that God is gay. That was basically what I went into. And I talked about several other things with this ridiculous prayer. I mean, it's awful. And Father Martin, I mean, pray for him, pray very hard for him. He will be lost if he doesn't get prayers. My wife has actually kind of adopted him as a priest that she hopes to save from hell. And so she prays for him and she fasts for him. And, maybe that's something we ought to take up too, is just consider maybe finding wayward priests and taking up the cause of praying for them, because quite honestly, if we don't, who will? Upcoming abuse summit at the end of the month. Yes, it's actually not at the end of the month. I believe it's next week or the week after. So the Pope downgraded expectations with regard to this thing. I never had high expectations for it anyway. What are these bishops going to talk about and decide upon in a 3-day conference over a topic that spans all the continents and deals with an issue that's far deeper than just the abuse of children? I use just in scare quotes, but we're talking about homosexual predators. They're going after seminarians. They're going after fellow priests. There are bishops that are abusing their own priests. And these priests and seminarians, they're afraid to speak out. They're afraid to say anything because they're afraid of breaking their vows of obedience, which is a little misunderstood, but they're also afraid of the retribution that's going to come from these bishops who are absolutely abusing their authority and absolutely just diabolically pushing this homosexual agenda. Storming Heaven. Am I familiar with Storming Heaven with Cardinal Burke? You'll remind me. Is this a book? Yeah, remind me what this is, and I'll get back to you. But the problem is homosexual priests, and they're not even going to address that at this summit. They're not going to address it. They're going to, and the Vatican, the Catholic Church, already has structures in place to protect children. All they're going to talk about is a new set of procedures, and what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Because you're leaving the same people in place of power and authority that are part of the problem. Cardinal Wuerl, for crying out loud, Cardinal Wuerl was responsible for shuffling around a bunch of priests that were known to be pederasts. He had one priest that he continued to pay, went down to the Cayman Islands, where he was murdered by his homosexual lover, had his body shipped back where he said mass for him as a priest. So, the people that are in power, the ones that are a large part of the problem, Coco Palmario, Cardinal Coco Palmario, who was in the Vatican, a part of this drug-fueled orgy, homosexual orgy, in the CDF apartments, is still one of Pope Francis's top advisors. So what do I expect from this summit? Nothing. I think that when we see the documents that come out, it's just going to be more of the same. It's going to be a way of trying to placate us so that we think that something's being done when it really isn't. As long as they leave the same people in power, as long as the Cardinal Wuerls and the Cardinal Coco Palmarios remain in their same positions, there's not going to be any change. And it doesn't matter what policies or procedures are in place. When I went to the Catholic Campaign for Human Development and started telling them about the things I was finding about their grantees, the things that they were giving money to, I don't know, I naively expected them to make some changes. Well, they went through a review and renewal process, and they started reviewing all of these different policies and how they were going to give grants and the process involved, and it became very convoluted. And when I started looking through who they were giving money to after that, and I said, these guys are breaking your grant guidelines even after the review and renewal. These guys are breaking your grant guidelines. These people are breaking your grant guidelines. And CCHD did nothing to stop it, because personnel is policy. It doesn't matter what the policy is. It matters who's in power, who has the direct ties and the direct control over the process. So just as there was no change with the CCHD over their whole review and renewal, and let's be clear, this was nothing but smoke and mirrors in order to try and make sure that the bishops were placated, that priests thought that something was done, and that the laity were lulled back to sleep. That's what the whole thing was all about. That's what I expect from this upcoming summit. That's what I expect. And so I'll be paying attention and looking at the documents as they come out, and I will scrutinize the holy heck out of them, because they need to be scrutinized. But I don't expect any changes, and I don't expect anything solid or actual to be done. Okay, let's see. Will it avoid the issue entirely? Probably. Okay, it's not a book. Once a month on the 1st, you say the rosary for an end to abortion, for the family, for priests. Cardinal Burke says Mass on that day for those intentions. That's awesome. That is absolutely fantastic. That's one thing that we should be doing. I mean, of course, we should be praying our rosary every day anyway. But joining in praying the rosary specifically for an end to abortion, for families, for priests. We have a long litany of intentions that we pray for at home when we say our rosary. But doing that once a month that's great. I think that we should be joining our prayers with Cardinal Burke and other holy priests. That's very important. But I think that what we need to do is bring our rosaries to the fight and be in the battlefield, be right outside those legislative buildings. There's a story in here, once again, back to the 10 wonders of the rosary. There's a story in here that I thought was very, let me see if I can find it. It was very interesting. It had to do with what took place in Brazil. Here we go. One of the most inspiring rosary victories of the 20th century took place in Brazil in 1964. When the country was being governed by the communist leading president, João Goulart, large groups of people returned to the rosary and rose up in rebellion against the oppressive leaders. Rosary groups formed and were able to break up communist rallies by marching in the streets, loudly praying the rosary. One famous event occurred in the city of Belo Horizonte, where a communist rally was taking place under the direction of President Goulart. The president had already appointed many communists to high positions in the government and was now rallying support in Belo Horizonte for a communist revolution in Brazil. The Archbishop of Rio de Janeiro, Cardinal de Barros Camara, spoke against the president by going on national radio to ask the people of Brazil to live the message of Fatima as a means of overcoming the communist threat. President Goulart was so enraged by the Archbishop's messages that he insulted the people of Brazil in a public speech that ridiculed the rosary, saying that it was his communist ideas that would reform and save Brazil, not the rosaries of simple women. These words greatly upset the Brazilian people, and they decided to confront the communists during the rally in Belo Horizonte. The rally in Belo Horizonte was led by Goulart's brother, Lionel Brizola, and it was intended to be one of the largest communist rallies in the country. As it was taking place, more than 20,000 women marched into the streets with rosaries in their hands to engage in spiritual battle. They marched right into the midst of the communist rally and prayed the rosary so loudly that it shut the rally down. On March 19th, only 6 days after the women broke up the communist rally, so there's the 13th again. This happened on March 13th. Only 6 days after the women broke up the communist rally, more than 600,000 people marched through the streets of Sao Paulo, praying the rosary in the famous March of the Family with God Toward Freedom. Initially, this march was called the March to Make Amends to the Holy Rosary, since President Goulart had insulted the rosary in his public speech. However, the name was changed so that non-Catholics could participate as well. Many non-Catholics did attend the march and prayed the rosary with the Catholics as they marched in defiance against the president's communist vision. Goulart was so intimidated by the Rosary Army that within 2 weeks, he had fled the country. In thanksgiving for the Rosary victory, the people of Brazil organized another march in gratitude to Our Lady and her Rosary. It was held on April 2nd, 1964, one day after President Goulart fled the country. This is the power of the Rosary. This is what we need to be looking to. I mean, for crying out loud. And what's interesting, when you think about what happened with President Goulart, what did he do? He was so enraged by what was happening that he overstepped his bounds. He overstretched his statement and he insulted the people. This is exactly what happened with Governor Northam in Virginia when he decided that he was going to not just say that he thought that infanticide would be a decision between a woman and her physician, but that to double down on it and to say that, you know, anybody who said that he doesn't have that opposes his statements and thinks that he's a horrible human being and throwing this back in his face, they're disgusting. Those are his words. He called them disgusting. He's overstepped his bounds and now he's doubled down. So we're going to be taking our rosary and we're going to be marching around the legislative buildings, and hopefully we can drum up enough support that we will push him out of office as well. That's the hope. That's what we should be hoping for and looking to with the rosary. How will this play with the mainstream media? Aren't they expecting some results? Which I don't know what you're talking about. Be specific. I was talking about several things, so I'm not sure what specifically you're talking about. So go ahead and tell me what you're talking about, and I'll get back to you. People from all over the world join in each month. Now it's live streamed. Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So, yep, I'll be participating in that. Oh, the thing from Rome. You know, I think that the mainstream media is easily duped, and they're in bed with most of the Vatican stuff anyway. So what they'll probably do is say, oh, the Vatican's putting in these new programs and these new things, and they've got this under control, and Pope Francis, what a wonderful leader he is to try to take control and to really push this and make sure that the children are protected. Or because they're also anti-Catholic, they'll take it a step further and say, this isn't good enough, this is awful, the Catholic Church needs to go away. So it'll be one of the two extremes. They'll either fawn all over Pope Francis and say how wonderful it is that he's doing something, or they'll go in the opposite direction and say, Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church, isn't doing enough. He clearly doesn't take this message or this problem seriously. So the problem is Catholicism, and Catholics will be persecuted. It'll be one of the two. I don't expect any middle ground on this one. People from all over the world join in each month. Yep. We were just talking about that. Cardinal Burke said Mass this morning in his private chapel in Rome at 7:00 a.m. and led the Rosary Contact Catholic Action. Thomas McKenna. Wonderful. Excellent. So, all right. I apologize profusely for the more casual approach. Maybe this was better. I don't know. Give me some feedback. Let me know. I tried to prepare ahead of time. My notes went away when my laptop bombed out and I had to reopen. So I apologize again for kind of the more casual approach to this. And In 2 weeks, so not next week, but the week after, I will be giving you a report on where we are with our battle plan, how we're going to approach the problem, how we're going to try and fix it. But just to remind you, the time is now. The time is now. We can't wait anymore. We can't sit on the sidelines and say, well, we will continue to pray for somebody to fix this. We've got to take up our swords and go out there and do it ourselves. That's what Our Lady expects of us. Also, first Fridays, first Saturdays. If you haven't done it, do it. I just did First Friday again today, so get the First Fridays, first Saturdays done. Pray the Rosary. We are going to put together a battle plan, and I think Our Lady's her request at Fatima, the 5 first Saturdays and the Holy Rosary every day. That's what's going to be the path to bring about the triumph of her Immaculate Heart. So that's what we have to do. Again, one last thing. I do recommend this book, 10 Wonders of the Rosary by Father Donald Calloway. It's a very good book. I hope that you do find it as edifying as I have. My family has enjoyed me reading it to them. And so I will see you all in 2 weeks. In the meantime, let's say our Hail Mary, and I will pray for you, and I hope that you will pray for me also. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Our Lady of Victory, pray for us. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. God bless you all. See you in 2 weeks.